What's the worst plot hole you've seen in a well-regarded movie?
The Little Mermaid. Girl, just write things down.
I was about to say she wouldn't know how to write in English, but then I remembered the contract written in literal English that she literally signed in English and just.
Why would Skynet send its more advanced Terminators to the points in time when Sarah and John knew they might come after them?
Skynet was programmed with a strong sense of fair play.
IDK if that's a plot hole or not, but how did a display airplane have fuel in the last Wonder Woman movie? Not to mention, how they showed that the plane became untrackable just because Diana made it invisible. I really needed to suspend my disbelief there.
Not to mention that it would not have the fuel capacity to fly all the way to Egypt and back. In Back to the Future, Doc paints a line on the road so Marty will hit the wire and get the lightning bolt into the flux capacitor at exactly the right time. The movie even says Doc has adjusted for wind resistance etc. But when Marty goes to drive, the car won't start. The alarm clock goes off and he is still stalled. So technically Marty leaves late yet still hits the wire on time. So Doc's math was wrong and no one said a word. If the car had not stalled, Marty would have been too early, missed the lightning bolt, crashed into the movie theater and never got home.
If Doc didn't piss all over his toilet seat, he would have never invented time travel.
In Cars, during the one-on-one race between Lightning McQueen and Doc Hudson, the policeman reads out the rules and asterisk literally says, "No lollygagging." What does Doc do? He friggin' lollygags as Lightning speeds away. So even though Lightning falls into the cacti and has to be towed out, Doc should already have been disqualified from the race. Lightning wins, he gets to fill up with gas and leave Radiator Springs, leaving Doc to fix the road.
What's lollygagging in Cars context?
Disney's Hercules. Hades would have been able to check to see if Hercules actually died very easily. Heck, he was probably eagerly waiting to watch Herc's soul end up in the underworld. Pain and Panic could not have gotten away with that lie. Edit, while I'm edit, Hera and Zeus knew Hercules was alive, which means all the other gods should have known.
It's sorta funny because this would totally happen in real mythology. Those books are filled to the brim with Bob tells God an easily disprovable lie. God finds out and is very cross with Bob.
I love the MCU, but one plot hole I've seen in the movies comes from Ant-Man. In the beginning of the movie, Hank Pym explains that when you use the Pym particles to shrink, you have the same mass. This way, when Scott shrinks to an inch tall and punches someone in the face, it's like being punched by a grown man, even though he's very small. Anyway, fast forward and there's a scene where Hank reveals that he has a tank on his keychain that he shrunk using the Pym particles. If this is the case, then how is Hank carrying the tank around if it still has its same mass? He shouldn't physically be able to carry it. Edit. Wow, my first rip my inbox moment. Thanks everyone. I've really enjoyed reading all of your replies.
In Ant-Man and the Wasp, he shrunk a whole building and carried it around like a luggage bag.
Cinderella. She is told by the fairy godmother that everything will turn back to what it originally was at midnight. Her dress, carriage, and horses do, so why don't her glass slippers?
Fairy godmother planned this whole thing from the start.
Fred and George Weasley, and later Harry himself, having the Marauders map and not seeing the massive Peter Pettigrew on top of Ron's name for years. Edit. Just realized this could have been written as not seeing Ron's massive PP. We'll get M next time.
The plot hole here is that they figured out how to open it at all.
Every Christmas movie that centers around Santa being real and adults not believing in him. Who is actually leaving the presents? Because if it's the parents, then Santa isn't doing his job, but if it's Santa, where on earth do the parents think the presents are coming from?
Not only that, but why does it have to be the plot in every Christmas movie? So infuriating when you have little kids. This was a big giveaway for me as a child because people asked me if I believed, and eventually you think, if everyone knew it was real, no one would question me. Like people don't walk around asking you if you believe in the sun. Same thing about the movies. If every movie is about how nobody believes, it makes you wonder what the hell.
Everyone is covered in dirt in Waterworld.
Paper is a mythical priceless substance, but they constantly smoke cigarettes rolled in paper.
In Independence Day, when the army is briefing the volunteers for the assault on the alien mothership, everyone looks at Randy Quaid like he's crazy for saying he was abducted by aliens, as the world is *, currently being invaded by aliens *.
That always bothered me. They're all like, get a load of asterisk this guy asterisk, he believes in aliens, what a wacko. While they're all currently refugees of an alien invasion.
Maybe not the worst, but rats are not on the list of animals allowed at Hogwarts.
To be fair, greater than, he was a human, less than.
How is it that C-3PO, human-cyborg relations, is fluent in over 8 million forms of communication and was even built on Tatooine but doesn't seem to speak Jawa?
Interstellar. They have 3 of the smartest people from Earth on board their spacecraft. When deciding whether to go down to the planet where time moves faster, they know they will lose years on their mission's deadline. Why did they rush the decision in a quick meeting? At least run a SWOT analysis or something. Preferably run drills, walk through possible scenarios of what will happen when you get there. Spend 4 to 5 weeks of preparations. If it saves you more than 30 seconds down on the planet, it paid for itself. Found this infuriating when I watched it.
In Harry Potter, why did they feel the need to wear the Horcrux that made them all bat-boo crazy? Why couldn't they have just kept it in their bag?
Yeah, FR, especially Hermione's bottomless bag thing. In the film, Gravity, George Clooney is hanging onto a tether and insists Sandra Bullock cut him loose to save herself. This is complete nonsense as there is no physical force pulling him away. With the slight tug on the tether he would have floated over to her. It's a monumental plot hole. The director got an Oscar when he should have been imprisoned.
Those are the choices, Oscar, prison.
Star Wars have plenty, but why didn't Obi-Wan remember R2-D2 and C-3PO is one of my favorite.
What's worse than that is how R2-D2 and C-3PO got to Tatooine in the first place. The Empire is looking for the Death Star plans on the blockade runner, but when said blockade runner jettisons an escape capsule, they conclude that they should ignore it because there's no life aboard. That might seem clever to Earth audiences today, but it shouldn't have even been a question to denizens of the Star Wars universe. In that reality, robots are shown to be just as capable as sentient life, and since the Clone Wars were only a few decades prior, that fact should still be fresh on the minds of military officers. Hell, forget the robot, living creature part, they were looking for data. Data that isn't alive and doesn't even need to be part of a robot at all. That capsule could have been completely empty except for a hard drive or a napkin with the plans crudely scribbled on it.
In Jumanji, the original, the hunter, Van Pelt, runs out of ammo and goes to the gun shop to buy more bullets. But at the climax of the movie, when everything from Jumanji gets sucked back into the board, the first thing to get sucked in is his bullet that is mid-flight. One of the bullets he bought from the gun store.
Saw. Why didn't he just use the saw to get the phone that was just barely out of reach instead of cutting off his effing foot?
10 minutes into the movie in theaters, this big dude behind my friend and I shouted, "EY, make a lasso with your clothes, dog." And it really ruined the rest of the movie. Now I just pretend this is what the Dread Pirate Roberts was doing while Buttercup was growing up.
Goddamn, you Die Hard 2. The planes do not have fuel to reach another airport and everyone can die, right? Well, 40 miles and you have national. You're welcome, McLean family.
Gremlins. It's always after midnight.
I figured this out after reading the Dresden books. Magic resets at sunrise, so the rule that they can't be fed after midnight means between midnight and sunrise. So while this was never properly explained in the movies, it makes sense because of that rule.
Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. She's the only one who can find the pieces, and they can only be used once every 5,000 years. She doesn't want to use them, only to keep them away from the bad guys, so her best move is to do absolutely nothing.
What makes you think she didn't want to use them? She did want to use them to get her dead father back and actually used them for a moment to meet him. She knew she shouldn't use them, and therefore was conflicted about it, but she definitely wanted to. How's that a plot hole?
Why does a bathtub need a lifeguard?
Because there's a shark.
Lady, you're crazy. Why did they have him sleep on the waterbed? He had scissors for hands .
Not a well-regarded movie per se, but rather a continuation of one. The whole entirety of Wonder Woman 1984 is basically a huge plot hole to Wonder Woman's canon in the previous DCEU movies, that with a combination of bad writing. She clearly said she walked away from mankind for 100 years, yet there she was in the movie doing good deeds and kicking bad guys in the 80s. They tried to soft retcon it by showing walking away from mankind. means that she just went incognito, but that kinda ruins her whole character progression in BVS. She also learns how to fly at the climax of the movie, an ability she never used in BVS or Justice League. Edit. I agree with many of the replies, but some of y'all really need to know the difference between plot holes and bad writing.
This is exactly why people need to be careful while making movies in a series in which they are set before current timeline events.
I largely blame Warner Bros. On this one. WW84 was made after the cluster F that is called Justice League. The studio was probably trying to distance the universe from whatever Zack Snyder came up with in his 3 movies, hence they allowed Patty Jenkins to do whatever she wants with Wonder Woman. The result is incoherent plot lines and plot holes. It's basically similar to the problems with the Star Wars sequels but worse.
The Dark Knight Rises. Bane breaks into the Gotham Stock Exchange and openly commits fraud in order to bankrupt Bruce Wayne. I'm not a financial expert, but I feel like if a group of terrorists broke into a stock exchange in broad daylight and stole money from a multinational conglomerate in front of hundreds of witnesses, none of the fraudulent transactions would be honored.
They actually explain it in the movie. The financial transactions are entirely fraudulent and Alfred was suing to get them back, but the courts have tied up the money so Batman can't get his money for a few months. Which is all the time Bane needed. Basically all Bane did was freeze all of Bruce Wayne's assets so he could not use them. By the time Bruce would have gotten his money back, Bane would have taken over the city.
In Threat Level Midnight, how is the president working with Golden Face but at the end calls Michael Scarn for another mission? Wasn't he evil?
I do as I please.
Obi-Wan hiding Luke from his father by moving him to his father's home planet and using his father's surname.
TBF Anakin is a dumbass and never found out.
In Episode 2 F-09, when Itchy plays Scratchy's skeleton like a xylophone, he strikes the same rib in succession, yet he produces 2 clearly different tones. I mean, what are we to believe, that this is a magic xylophone, or something? Ha ha, boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
How did the donkey F the dragon in Shrek?
You should have stayed for the post-credits scene.
Sex scene flushed.
Matrix. It's safe to assume that the same technology could have worked using any other mammals. Why did the machines pick human instead of, say, cows? It would have been far more convenient to construct and run a matrix that's just a huge grass plain, with a couple of shepherd dogs as agent. And they probably would have never had a chosen cow to come forward and mess with their plans.
The Matrix.
In Aladdin, the animated movie, when he enters the Cave of Wonders he is told to touch only the lamp, yet after entering he proceeds to touch and ride on a magic carpet that was in the Cave of Wonders, but the Guardian doesn't give a f about that. Edit. I have another problem with the Cave of Wonders as well. At the beginning of the movie, we are told, only one may enter, a diamond in the rough. Then, when a random thief enters, the cave immediately collapses on him. We later discover that Aladdin is the diamond in the rough. So my problem is this: if Abu touching the ruby was enough to make the cave collapse, shouldn't that mean that he must also have been a diamond in the rough to be able to enter in the first place? If that is true, then the cave should have collapsed immediately since 2 people entered when he specifically said only the first of may enter. If you argue that Abu doesn't count because he is a effing monkey, then him touching the ruby shouldn't have mattered.
Toy Story. If Buzz believes that he is a real astronaut, why does he freeze around humans like the other toys?
Not necessarily a plot hole, but it still annoys the hell out of me, the entire premise of A Quiet Place. An apex predator that hunts strictly by sound and has giant pulsating hearing organs, and no one decided to try annoying frequencies against them until a girl accidentally discovered it? I barely passed math or science classes, and even I would have immediately thought about trying to fight them with sound, yet no. Humans just adapted to being real quiet. Makes no sense.
There are newspapers about the invasion. Printing presses are noisy AF, so I don't know how they printed and distributed those.
The inconsistent depth of the Tyrannosaurus enclosure in Jurassic Park. It's shown to be level, with the cars from the goat through to the T-Rex physically being able to tear through the fence and step out the enclosure, but after that point it turns into a 10-story drop that Dr. Grant and the kids fall down.
Independence Day. When Jeff Goldblum writes a virus and sends it to the mothership. He constructs the virus in 2 minutes with no knowledge of alien technology. Like the mothership was also running MS Windows 7. Like the virus perfectly integrated with alien technology, Like the aliens didn't have anti-virus software. Like the aliens used the same Wi-Fi protocols to communicate. What did Jeff do? Send him a effing email. You get the idea. This comment is just a bit of tongue-in-cheek fun. Don't take me too seriously.
The 8 years later time card in Spider-Man: Homecoming. There's no possible explanation that can make it work. I love how it was so problematic that all they could do was pretend it never happened. Because it breaks the MCU if you think about it too much, rolling on the floor laughing.
The entire plot of Tomorrow War. If you can go back in time, use it to prepare for the invasion. Don't take current people to the future. That makes no sense. Or use the time machine to go further back and make more time machines. Edit. Grammar.
I'm just learning how many people don't know what a plot hole is. It's not just something you didn't like about a movie, lol.
Right, a character making a dumb decision is not a plot hole. Bad storytelling maybe, but literally not a plot hole. The Matrix. Humans don't produce electricity. Our waste heat is thermodynamically less useful than directly burning our food. And you also wouldn't need a fancy matrix to keep that going. The original script called for using human brains for their spare computational potential. Not quite as dumb.
Greater than Morpheus. For the longest time, I wouldn't believe it. But then I saw the fields with my own eyes, watched them liquefy the dead so they could be fed intravenously to the living. Greater than Neo asterisk, politely, asterisk, excuse me, please. Greater than Morpheus. Yes, Neo? Greater than Neo. I've kept quiet for as long as I could, but I feel a certain need to speak up at this point. The human body is the most inefficient source of energy you could possibly imagine. The efficiency of a power plant at converting thermal energy into electricity asterisk decreases asterisk as you run the turbines at lower temperatures. If you had any sort of food humans could eat, it would be more efficient to burn it in a furnace than feed it to humans. And now you're telling me that their food is asterisk the bodies of the dead, fed to the living, asterisk. Haven't you ever heard of the laws of thermodynamics? Greater than Morpheus. Where did asterisk you asterisk hear about the laws of thermodynamics, Neo? Greater than Neo. Anyone who's made it past one science class in high school ought to know about the laws of thermodynamics. Greater than Morpheus. Where did you go to high school, Neo? Greater than pause. Greater than Neo, in the Matrix. Greater than Morpheus. The machines tell elegant lies. Greater than pause. Greater than Neo asterisk, in a small voice asterisk, could I please have a real physics textbook? Greater than Morpheus. There is no such thing, Neo. The universe doesn't run on math. HPMOR, link.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.